Women on a Green Mission. Follow along as two friends document their unfurling permaculture journeys.
Join our chats each week where we'll be sharing how we and others apply permaculture to our gardens and daily life.
We're no experts. We're at the start of our journey, fumbling our way to a greener life. We'd love your company along the way. Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Can you believe that this is the last episode for season 2?
I know. I met up with my friend today to record an episode for season 3, and she was like, "How are you in season 3 already?"
I know. It's been so good and such a whirlwind, and we've learnt so much and met amazing humans, and there's so much that's happened. And we've just squeezed it
We've
in and around our lives, haven't we?
Yeah, we've had some epic guests this season.
Oh, it's been amazing. And, we've got a whole heap of amazing guests that are lined up for season 3. And, we're our mini episodes, we're going to have a bit of a theme running through. I'm not going to give too much away. We'll wait for season 3 to roll around. But I'm really proud of us that we've done this. So, I'm going to plug us and say, yay us.
Yeah. If I told you I got an email from this lady saying, "Oh, my name's so and so, and I want to edit your podcast for you," and I was like, "Okay, but we can't pay you. We don't make any money yet."
Yeah, are you doing it for free and out of the goodness of your heart? Then we can talk.
Because that's very permaculture of you. If you would like to do that for free.
We can trade, we can share some knowledge and information, and maybe depending on where you are, we can do a skill share, or we're very happy to do that. But yeah, we have no money.
So, how's your week been?
It's been good. It's been busy, as as the weeks are. Last weekend we went to the long table lunch for small landholders at Tokau.
Yes.
And Matthew Evans was presenting, and another gorgeous human, Kylie. I can't think of her last name. I'm sorry, Kylie, if you ever listen to this podcast. But she has an absolutely amazing story of when she was in Ireland, and she became the first and a groundbreaking, the only producer of free-range pasteurized eggs. Fun fact, apparently she wasn't allowed to use the word, I think it was, free range was the term that she couldn't use, because the other farmers said that she's just trying to make herself sound like she's better than them. Or maybe it was pasteurized or pasture raised eggs or something like that. But it was it was quite interesting, her story, and she's now up at Walker. So, she shared a bit about herself, and then obviously Matthew, shared a bit about himself and a little bit of behind the scenes stuff. It was really good, and it was such an amazing opportunity to connect with, with other landholders, small landholders, and just other people around here. So not everyone that went was a small landholder. Some were aspiring, others just wanted to come along to the event and network and have conversations. So it was such a great event, and caught up with a lot of amazing humans. Will was there from Maplewood. Kelly was there from the Pickle Patch. Ernie was there. She ended up sitting across the table from us. We had no idea that both of us were going. So it was really amazing. Yeah. So we had that, and then we've just been plodding along. I'm keen to get back out in the garden. My poor garlic's being overrun with everything. But yeah, the brassicas are coming on. I harvested all of the tomatoes today because I know that we're going to get a frost in the next little while, and they're just not going to ripen any further now. Like there's just not the heat. So I've harvested like a whole bucket, like a huge bucket of green tomatoes. So I'm green tomato relishing this evening. That's going to be my job.
'Tis the season.
Because it is the season. That's it. And I've taken some snippings of some of the tomatoes that did really well, and I've potted those snippings, those cuttings up, and put them in the little hot house. So hopefully that they will continue on and they'll overwinter there, so that they can at least grow strong enough to for me to then take more cuttings. Because why plant seeds when you can fast track it and take cuttings? So yeah, we'll see how they go. And what about you? You got a new driveway.
Us. Yes, we got a new driveway put in. So it's an all-weather, all-access driveway. So the cement trucks can start coming and the build can start plodding along. So that's very exciting. It won't hold us up. Um, as of next week, I'll be pooping in a regular toilet rather than a bucket. So
Oh,
yay for me.
congratulations, you're moving up in the world.
I mean, I don't mind our little composting bucket, but after doing it for 2 years, I'm kind of ready for a flushing toilet. I'm all down with being eco, but that's one thing I'm scratching off my list. And yeah, we're getting our wastewater system put in, which is why we'll have a flushing toilet. So yeah, it's cool. It'll hook up our wastewater, our black and grey water, and then it recycles it in this tank essentially and treats
Yep.
it. And then it gets pumped back out into our garden so we can use it on all of our fruit trees and our non-edible like leafy greens. We can use it on all of that stuff. But we're going to divert some of our rainwater anyway outside that system and just use it, not our rainwater, sorry, our grey water. So yes, and yeah, besides that, we've just been plodding along in the garden, just wandering around, seeing what's working, what's not. Mum bought more plants up from Newcastle. So now we've got our bananas and our fig trees and apples, and so we're trying to figure out where our orchard's going to go now. All that stuff. I'm just hesitant to like plant anything. I'm kind of at that
Yeah.
paralysis stage where like I've
What if I change
observed,
my
but I don't think I've
mind?
observed long enough yet. Yeah, and is it the right position? Is there a better position? I know some stuff I can plant and it's home for now and replant, but there's some stuff like our citrus that I kind of want to nail because
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be very happy if we dig it up and move it. So
I suppose the upside
yeah, that's kind of
upside
where
with
we're
that
at.
is if you put it somewhere that's not ideal, you can also put another one in the ideal spot, and
True.
you can take the other one out at a later date.
Mm,
if it's really really in the wrong spot, or you can just go, well, okay, we'll just let
yeah.
that one kick on, um, and
Yeah.
then yeah, we'll put more in the right. There's air quotes here, the right spot.
Mm-mm.
So
Yeah, and we
yeah,
have like a few trees we want to thin out, so we're gonna take those down and use them for our spalier, like
yep.
trunks. What sticks? What's the word I'm looking for, Joe?
Posts,
You know what I'm talking
posts.
about? Post.
Yep,
Thank you.
posts.
Total
Sounds
mind blank.
like
So well, yeah, we got to get all that ready as well before we go planting anything anyway. So yeah, bit by bit, but yeah, trying to figure out the best spot for some of our stuff. But yeah, besides that, repotting a lot of stuff into bigger pots so that it's healthy, and yeah, nothing major, just kind of plodding along.
it's the season for that, though, isn't it? Like,
True.
we're now,
Oh,
officially in winter. There was what?
if you're listening, you can't see my face, but I just remembered, Joe, I have mastered sourdough.
Yay!
Yes. So if you
So
follow us on
good.
Instagram, you would have seen my pathetic excuse for a sourdough a few months back. Now we've stopped traveling. I've started again. I'm making it every day and I'm so happy.
Okay, now you know. Can you teach me?
Oh, but you were the one who taught me.
You know what? I haven't made it for a while, and I've taken my starter out of the fridge, and I've let Dolene sit on the bench near the fireplace and warm up, and I give her a
Yeah,
feed, and then I put it back into the fridge, and I just haven't had the time to do it. Well, it's one of the excuses, right? Like we've always got time, especially
yeah,
um, the 10-minute method. Like it's 10 minutes hands on. Like it doesn't take that long. But I just haven't
yeah.
yeah, just haven't done it.
Done it.
And I do,
Yeah.
I do want to get back into it.
I've
And I've been watching a few other videos of what other people are doing because I would like to try, the traditional where every half an hour you're folding it. I have not
That's
mastered
what I'm
that yet.
doing.
Any?
That's
Oh,
what
you're
I'm
doing that
doing.
way, yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing the full thing. So I've got like a routine. So like I make before I go to bed, I feed it. I take some of it out of the fridge, feed it, and then leave it on top of the coffee machine. And then I flick the kettle, like the coffee machine on in the morning. I put everything in my Thermomix, which is definitely helping like streamline the process. it does like a quick rough mix for me. It
Yep.
sits for 45 minutes. Then I add the salt, and then I put it in a bowl. Or sorry, mix it again, put it in a bowl. And then I go through that 4-hour phase of every half hour, 45 minutes, laminating it and folding it.
Yep.
And then after that 4 hours, I shape it. It sits for 2 hours and I bake it. Sometimes the 4 hours ends up being like 5 or 6, depending what's going on during the day. And it's not always every 45 minutes. But on the days I'm home, I'll set a timer and I'll make sure I try and go back super
Yep.
regularly. But like yesterday, I was super surprised. We went to Coffs Harbour. I probably only laminated it twice. And I took it out, shaped it. It looked really like gooey. And I was like, this is not going to be any good. But I baked it and it was fine. So I think like the quality of feeding it regularly has made a huge difference
Yeah.
to
You got a
how it turns out.
nice strong starter. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, I never
So yeah,
understood
I'm
what that
happy.
meant. Yeah,
Mm,
until like, yeah, we started getting into it, and then I went, oh, now I understand what they mean by a strong starter. Like, she's healthy, she's
mm,
well fed, she's hungry,
yeah,
so it's quite reactive when you do feed it. It's not like this sluggish kind of, "Ugh, I'm just trying to get out of bed" kind of thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my
Oh,
other big win.
we need some photos. We definitely need some sourdough
Okay,
photos. Inspire me.
okay, I will post them
I
on
need to
our.
start back into it because I miss my
Okay,
fresh sourdough.
we've got a private Facebook group, so anybody who wants to jump on there and share their sourdough recipes and their little sourdough starters, we've named down ours Dolene because we have a joint starter. It came from the same thing and we split it.
Twinning.
But yeah, jump on. We'd love to see. So I'll post my
Absolutely.
photos on there for anybody, and probably Instagram too if anybody's interested.
Yes. Awesome. Now, for our very last season 2 episode, we have a pretty cool guest.
Yes, so we met her at the Permaculture Northern Beaches event that we did our talk at. And Corinne um, started off her career as a cocktail creator and a drinks writer. And she had a black thumb, like a self confessed black thumb, didn't know how to garden very well. Rescued a chili plant in her
One little
garden,
chili
and
plant.
that gave her one little plant, and that gave her all the inspiration she needed to start making cocktails and getting into gardening. And all her cocktails now are garden based cocktails. So she has books about it and she does talks, and she's so funky with her blue hair. She has such a cool personality.
She is.
And yeah, it
She
was
starred
so cool talking to
on
her.
Gardening Australia as well, so she was a guest on
Yes.
there. So yeah, I think it's a really fun conversation and well worth listening to, because if you were like us thinking, oh well, it's botanical cocktails, like you take I don't know, dehydrate
Mint
some
leaf.
citrus and yeah, throw a couple of mint leaves in there and that's your botanicals. No, she corrected us and definitely explained what botanical cocktails were. And it's
Mm,
alchemy. It really is. It's a
yeah.
really interesting thing and an opportunity to be super creative. So yeah, let's
Yeah,
jump
and
in
she
and
does shrubs. She does shrubs as well. So for those who aren't drinkers, she does shrubs and other soda-based things. So yeah, have a listen. Either way, you will enjoy the episode. But yes, let's jump in.
enjoy.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another week of the Practical Permaculture podcast. This week we have Corinne. Is that how I pronounce your name? I should have
That's
checked
right.
that. Corinne. We met Corinne at the Northern Beaches Permaculture event that we did back in May. And we met some other lovely, wonderful people. But Joe and I were definitely frothing on her talk and what she does. So we thought we have to get her on the podcast.
Yes.
So welcome, Corinne.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. What a lovely introduction.
Before we get too far into the podcast, we always just acknowledge the land that we're recording on. So where are you, Corinne?
I'm in Clovelly, which is in Bitchigal and Gadigal country. So that's in Sydney, New South Wales.
Lovely. And you, Joe?
I'm in my little home bundle in the Hunter Valley on the lands of the Wanneroo people.
and I'm up in the Northern Rivers on Jaeger country. So, yes, tell us a bit about yourself, where you live, your context, like, just all about Corinne.
How long have we got? Okay, just as a brief introduction, my name is Corinne Mossati. I'm a drinks writer by profession. I'm also an author, cocktail gardener, and the founder editor of the Gourmantic Garden and Cocktails and Bars websites. So as you could see, there's a little bit of a crossover here in between what I do, between the cocktails and the gardening angle. And it's something that the cocktail obviously is, my background, but the gardening is something that I would say fairly new. To give you a little bit of an idea of my story, I started with no prior knowledge of anything to do with gardening. And I used to kill everything, including mint. And then what happened was one day it was in December 2018, I stepped into the paved courtyard, which is my garden, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a moment. And I looked around me, and whatever was there, I was surrounded by death. That's the best way to describe it. Everything was either dead or dying or on its last rites. And basically everything that was in pots or even in the ground, I thought, no, we need a massive clean out. So I started throwing everything out. But there was one chili plant that I bought years ago, and I pruned and, tossed so many things out. And I kept going back to that plant. And I thought, right, okay, let's see. Prune it, change the soil, put it in another pot. So I gave it fresh soil, which was probably about 2 or 3 years old. So it wasn't really that good. And I watered it every day for about a week or so. And I thought, let's just see what happens. And then after about a week or so, I noticed tiny bit of green growth. And that did something. It just triggered something inside that made me want to learn more about gardening. I thought, well, if I brought something back from the dead, I can actually do this. Okay. So I set out to kind of replace what the paved garden setup that I've got. And just to give you an idea so you can imagine it, it is a paved courtyard, and the border all along is made up of sandy soil, zero nutrients. It's probably more sand than soil, to be honest. And it's between 5 centimeters and 30 centimeters deep in parts. So, and it's sitting on concrete. So that there's no proper drainage or anything like that. And I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. So I thought, okay, let's just clear stuff out and start to grow things. And, people say to you when you're starting is grow the things that you like and start small. Well, Corinne didn't.
You're a woman after our own heart, Corinne. I have to say that. You're in good company.
Thought, you know what? Let's just go big, because when I've set my mind to something, I just want to do it. So I started wanting to grow everything that I could get my hands on. But I had old pots and I had bits and pieces, and I thought, no, I need to set it up to be like a garden. I need something bigger. And I was too afraid to get into a raised garden bed, because that was just like, at that stage, I didn't know what I was doing. So the big part of what I wanted to do is to embrace the sustainability aspect into the garden. So when I initially set up my garden, 97% of it is from material that were saved from landfill, that were repurposed, and things that people were throwing out. And you would be amazed the amount of things that people throw out that are in great condition. But what I had set up is these planters, which were years ago, they used to be the recycling crates that council would put out. And I don't know whether that was in your area as well, but we had them, and they were these great big solid black boxes. And all I did was just drill some holes, fill them up with soil, and I managed to find these benches that somebody had thrown out. They were still like not something you want to have in your garden, but I actually put those crates on top to raise it, so it made it easier to walk around. And that's how I set up the majority of the garden first up, by using these things. And then it just becomes a little bit addictive. It's like you look at something and you think, how can I repurpose this? What can I use how can I use this in the garden? And to be able to show people the garden and say 97% of what you see here, including the garden furniture, has been saved from landfill, is amazing.
Yeah.
We did have garden furniture before, but we had an accident, and well, there was a bit of wind and sort of got caught under the umbrella, and the glass broke and all that.
Oh.
And so it's like, yeah, I was upset, but then I thought, you know what, that was a big table and I could use that space because it's a tiny courtyard.
Yeah.
So we got rid of that, and and started building the garden in that respect. So having having that sustainability aspect is very important for me. So when I was saying that I started really big and I had no idea, I really didn't have any idea. So I went to garden center and it's like, right, okay, let's buy all this stuff. So I bought things that were out of season. I didn't know at the time.
We've all done that.
Okay, right? Because they sell it. Oh, that's the thing when you don't know when you're starting new. And then I bought things like, you're probably going to laugh at this. I bought globe artichokes, right? And I planted them all in one tiny pot because I didn't know back then how big they get. Anyway, they didn't survive. But the whole point of saying this as well is by going big and by making all these mistakes, I was learning very quickly. So I was reading a lot. I was making notes that I put on my phone. And I was just, the learning curve was steep and it was rewarding because things didn't work. It's like, why didn't this work? Okay, because I need to do something better. I used cheap soil. I did all sorts of the wrong things, but I learned very quickly. And after about a year or so, I had all these notes on my phone, and that was really hard to sift through the information that I wanted. So I thought, well, why don't I start a website to have all the gardening information? So I created the gourmanticgarden.com in 2020. And the idea behind it, it takes the concept of grow it, eat it, drink it, which is my hashtag on Instagram, and also the banner under which my books are now published. So it's a whole concept. You grow it, you eat it, you drink it, you make cocktails out of it. And sustainability is a big part of it as well. So I've got a sustainability section on the website. And yeah, so that was pretty much a steep learning curve and a lot of fun and a lot of mistakes, but you learn very, very quickly. And one of the things that I also wanted to get into, which was always like this mysterious thing for me, is to grow Australian native edibles. Right? That is my big passion. And I managed to start very small on that front because I needed to find space. And when you're small on space, you play garden Tetris and you get pots from here and put them there. And it's like, where does this fit into the scheme of things? And now I've got over 55 different varieties of Australian native edibles in the garden. Mostly edibles, I should correct that. Mostly edibles, but yeah. And that's also something very, very exciting to have, because what I do grow, the majority of what I have are edibles, because as soon as I knew what I was doing, the first thing I wanted to do is make cocktails out of them.
So yeah, I love the fact that you went big to start with, because of course that's part of what Elise and I have both done in the past as well. It's like, let's not start small. Let's do everything right now, and then sort of look back and go, oh shit, why didn't that work? Why didn't why did this die, and why isn't this growing because it's not the right season? But I actually wanted to go back to when you're talking about, I suppose I call it, I don't know, road rescue now. It's like when you are driving past someone's house and you see that perfectly good item that someone's throwing out, and you think, how can you do that? How can you just let something go to landfill that has a second, third, fourth potential life there? I want to know what's the favorite thing that you've got in your garden right now that you've rescued?
My favorite, or the most amazing thing that I rescued?
Both.
Both.
Okay. My favorite thing is actually, it's very hard to describe. It's like this it's like this dress, and you're supposed to hang earrings on it or something like that. You know,
Oh,
it's
I
like
know what
this
you're
figure.
talking about. Yes,
Oh, I
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
see.
yeah. Okay, I'll have to send you a photo of
Yes,
an
please.
old one because I saw that, and I'm not into all this girly stuff. But the reason why I got it because I thought I could actually have like flowers growing out of it like a dress, and I did that, and it looks really pretty. So that's kind of like my
Oh, we'd
favorite.
love to see photos. I'd love to share photos of that. That sounds
Yeah, I'll
amazing.
have to find it. I haven't actually got something growing in it at the moment, but I did at the time, and I'll send it to you.
Mm.
Yeah. And the most incredible thing that I found, don't hate me for it, a veggie pod.
Oh,
Oh,
no
hey,
way.
hey, that's an amazing find. I would totally take that and love that.
That was incredible. And like we were walking past and across the street, and then there were people there looking at through stuff. And then we just sort of like went back around. And just as we went past, they put it out. And I thought, oh my God, someone throwing out a veggie pod. And I said, is this working? And they said, yes. Unfortunately, we know we've got another baby coming and we haven't got the room for it. So here, take it. Like
Wow.
another 5 minutes and we would have missed out.
Wow. My grandma lives in a big apartment block in Wentworth Point, and she goes down to the like garbage area. It's not even a reuse area, it's a garbage area. And she said the amount of stuff people throw out. She's like lounges in
Mhm.
perfectly good
Yeah,
condition and
yeah.
kids' toys, and she just finds stuff and grabs it for us, or she'll take a photo and say, "Oh, do you need this?" or "Do the kids need this?" And there's so much stuff that people just dump down there, and if it doesn't get taken, it literally goes to landfill.
Well, you should see
Mhm.
the amount of pots that people put out,
Mm.
um, and the ones that sort of like hook on balconies and so
Oh
on.
yeah.
In mint condition, a lot of
Mm.
them. And I
Yeah,
use them to hang, like I use them as sort of like a little bit of a border around some of my stand-up pots as
Mm.
well. So try and maximize whatever space that I've got in the garden.
Mm.
But yeah, it's one of those things where you think, why should you go buying more plastic pots or whatever it is when, if there was a way of
it's there.
recycling,
Exactly.
sharing, that sort of thing, it would be great.
I
It's
want
one less thing in landfill. It's one less thing that comes out of the system. And we will share your Instagram, your socials links as well, because I jumped on and had a look at your courtyard earlier, and I just went, oh wow, like there's a particular photo. I'm going to bring it up as I'm chatting to you. I think it's like an aerial photo of you in this beautiful blue dress, sort of underneath your archway,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
can just see from that aerial photo. Um, how much work you've done to really maximize the space, and it's not crammed. Like, if people are sort of listening and thinking, oh, you've got this little tiny courtyard and you've jammed all this stuff in, I don't want that. Like, it's not crammed at all. It's beautiful and spacious and really functional, but it looks absolutely fantastic and incredibly practical and usable space as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Aesthetics is something that I kept in mind, and I'm very much into symmetry.
mm.
Um, so, whenever I'm taking photographs or the way I set things up, so I did that. I'll be honest with you, at one point you could barely move in the garden. But then I thought, no, let's just tidy things up a little bit now. And, I've got a lot more raised garden beds than what I had previously. And some of them were saved from landfill perfectly. Like one of them hadn't even been used. I
Wow.
was really lucky to find, yes. You know, it's very sad, but
Such
it's good for me. Yeah.
I'd love to know more about your original career, I guess you'd call it, in cocktails. Like, is it like a restaurant? You know, when people go to restaurants and they are food critics. So you're like a cocktail critic? What's your background? I find it so interesting.
Well, being a drinks writer,
Yeah.
so I write about bars, I write about spirits, write about cocktails. I'm also a cocktail creator, so
Wow.
yeah, so that's how I came around. I came into creating cocktails for my first book. Um, so it is very exciting. It is one of those things that you kind of like fell into. I started off. I started off with a previous website I had, Gourmantic, which was travel, food, drinks, and events. And then I decided after a while that I actually like cocktails and spirits a lot more. And I've created cocktailsandbars.com, which is something that is all about cocktail culture.
Wow.
So I've
Mhm.
got interviews there from, master distillers from around the world and, all sorts of people, industry people and so on. So it's actually very exciting for me to be able to bring my background in the cocktail and hospitality media industry into the gardening part. And that's how the whole idea of my first book came up.
So cool.
So you grow a lot of Australian natives. So you were saying how many before? You say 50, got
Over
53?
50, yeah, over 55 Australian
Over 55
natives.
Australian natives.
And in summertime, I have in total over 220 different varieties of plants in
Wow.
that tiny space,
Fantastic. And
which is,
so you're creating so not just making cocktails, but actually creating new cocktails from all of those different plants and botanicals and flavors and yeah, I
that's right.
suppose can you sort of explain that a little bit? Like even just that
Yes.
process, because I'm thinking, even when, we get together, Elise, like your cocktails are amazing, Elise. Like she spoils me. I'm not good at making, I'm good at the drinking part. So like my idea of a cocktail is literally gin tonic and I'm like grabbing some lemon verbena and, yeah, a bit of mint from the garden. I'll throw that in and I'm like, yeah, that's good. Like that's my idea of cocktail making. I don't think that I'm anywhere near your level, so I'd love to you to sort of speak to that a bit.
Well, that's actually a very good point what you've described, because a lot of people say to me, cocktail gardener, cocktail garden, what are you talking about? They think, oh, so you're growing a few herbs and you put that in your gin and tonic and that. I said, well, no, because that's just a small part of what I do. What I grow are the botanicals that become an integral part of a cocktail. And
Mm.
what does that mean? Okay. Let's just say take something really simple, for example, like basil. And you can get basil, you can actually muddle it into a cocktail, or you can make a syrup or a cordial out of it and use it in a cocktail. So it's actually an integral part of the drink. It's not just a garnish to give it a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
aromatics or the aesthetics. It's actually part of the drink. And so basically, as I was saying before, once I got to the point where I was growing things and I knew what I was doing, I started making drinks out of them. And in the early days, I would just, put something on one of my websites, or I'll put something on Instagram. And then one day, I got this email from Gardening Australia, and they said, "Oh, we're just watching what you're doing, and we would love to feature you on the show." And I was like, oh, how exciting. I can talk about sustainability. I can talk about small space. I can talk about this. I said, yeah, all good. We want to hear about your cocktail garden. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. So that was an incredible experience having the crew here, and Costa came along and we spent the whole day filming from 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. And the whole like the whole time I was talking about what I'm growing and how I use that in a cocktail. And at the end of the day, it actually made me think, I know so much, and you just don't realize when you've been doing something. And
Mm.
that's when I had the
Mm-hmm.
idea for the first book, which is called Grow Your Own Cocktail Garden. And if I can briefly give you an overview of what that book is about, which relates to your question.
Yes, please.
So basically, I wanted people to grow their own produce and use them in cocktails. So if you know anything about gardening and you don't know anything about cocktails, the book's for you. If you know something about cocktails and nothing about gardening, the book is for you. And if you know about gardening and cocktails, you either bought my book or you're me. So what I set out to do is to give like in the first part, to give all the basics of gardening and cocktail making. So that's your terminology, that's your equipment that you need to use, the tools, everything else. So basically, if you know nothing, it will take you through all that information on both sides. And then the second part of it, which is the exciting grow it, eat it, drink it. First part of that is all the grow guides. So I've got 50. When I say 100, I've got 50 botanicals in A to Z format, because, as I said
Mm-hmm.
to you, I had no idea whether tomato, cucumber, summer, winter. So it's not divided in seasons. It's divided in A to Z, and you just go, yep, I want to look at that, and you find it. The first part is how to grow it, all the information that you need, what type of soil, how you, whether you grow it from seed or you grow it from transplant, and how you care for it. The eat it part is not how to use it in recipes. It's actually which part of the botanical of the plant that you use. Is it the seed? Is it the leaf? Is it the root? What does it taste like? Is it earthy? Is it salty? Is it something sweet, and so on. And then I take you through and I will give you a pairing with food. So, for example, if we're talking tomato, we're talking basil, we're talking, other things with that to give you an idea of the flavor pairing. And then I give you the flavor pairing with spirits. Does it go with gin? Does it go with vodka? Does it go with rum? Does it go with whiskey? Does it go with vermouth? Right. So it's all to give you an idea of how you can try and experiment yourself. And then the most exciting part is the drink it, where I would give you the step-by-step recipe of how to make the cocktail. And if I'm saying to you, you need to use a basil syrup or a cordial of some sort, I will give you step-by-step instructions how to do it. So on the one page, you'll be able to follow that through in an easy format and make that drink. And you get also like the beautiful full-size page color photo of what the cocktail looks like so you can replicate it. So I've got 50 botanicals in there. I've got everything from, fruit, herbs, Australian natives, and so on. It's quite a variety. And quite a variety of methods. So you can use these botanicals to make an infusion. You can use them to make a shrub, and shrub being a drink, a vinegar-based drink. You can use them to make an oleosaccharum, which is actually a sugar oil. You can make it, you can use an oxymel, you can use all sorts of different ways, and they're all in that book, all those processes. So basically, you learn a lot about how to make the integral part of the cocktail as well as making the cocktail yourself. So that, to answer your question, Joe, that would give you the whole idea of how to, it's like, yeah, I can do this. And I've been writing like cocktail recipes for many, many years. So that was an easy part to do because I just, make it very easy for people to follow step by step rather than, make it confusing, and it's in a really easy format to follow as well. The last part is just the boring bits, appendices, how to deal organically with, with pests and diseases. So if you're, if you're new to gardening, as I was, I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? Like, there's something chewing this leaf and, all that sort of stuff. So the information is there. And of course, coming with sustainability background and, with a lot of the permaculture principles is sometimes do nothing, just let nature correct. Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds amazing.
So I was going to ask about how the permaculture principles. I know that we were sort of talking off air a little bit how you're not, you sort of didn't necessarily come into permaculture, but how permaculture aligns with what you do. So we've talked about the sustainability, absolutely, but I suppose looking at what did we call them earlier, Corinne? The 12
steps.
I keep calling it 12 steps, but I know it's not.
We're going to rename them. I think we're going to rename them, I think. I actually loved it because I went, oh, cocktails, and now we have 12 steps of permaculture. I'm like, yes, this is
I am
aligning.
so stealing that.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about how some of those principles align with what you're doing. I mean, from what you've said, obviously you've got the sustainability, looking at the closed loop as much as you can, looking at natural pest management, obviously growing seasonally, things like that. Looking at what the principles are and how they align with your garden and what you're doing.
Well, very much so. I mean, one of the first things that I did, and I didn't really know that that was one of the principles, sorry, of permaculture, is to stand in the garden and look around. It's like, oh, where's the sun? When does it get windy? Which is the best location to put things? And I had no idea. And I was out there with pen and paper, and then I put it all in an Excel spreadsheet, and set it all up eventually. But that is one part of permaculture, is actually looking at what you have and what you can work with, and how you can maximize it. So that was one of the first things that I did, without even knowing at the time what permaculture was about. Another thing is, the part about catching energy and so on. Well, because we had periods of drought before, and sometimes we get a lot of rain, and that. So you've got to be mindful of what's going. Yes, putting out buckets to collect rainwater and reusing that, and also, like, using water from the shower for when you're waiting for it to get warm, and using those sort of things. It becomes a lifestyle. It doesn't become something that you consciously do. It's what you do. It's second nature to you. you know and like, sometimes I get people from the hospitality industry come in and visit the garden, and I show them, and I'm talking about sustainability aspects, and how I've got worm farms and what I do with them, and they just say, Corinne, you're not talking about it, you're living it. And that is like, that's a lovely compliment, to be told that from people, without me telling them this is what I do. you know, Worm farming is something new to me, and being very squeamish, I was a little bit reluctant. But then I thought, no, look, everyone says it's fine, it doesn't smell, bite the bullet. And I got in touch with my local council, because they actually give it to you at a reduced rate, and I set it up, and I was very squeamish at the start, and then it's the best thing that I did, because now I just collect things and from the garden and put them back in the garden. So you get that closed loop. But also, before starting gardening, before taking up all this, with the concept of permaculture and zero waste, it's something that we do at home, my partner and I. We've always been about minimizing waste, and you know we never have leftovers, for example. You cook enough for what you need. Nothing is getting thrown out. And recycling and all this, like, from the early days we were practicing it. So it's not something that I had to force myself to do when I took up gardening. I just thought, well, how can I expand on that with, with the sustainability and the permaculture principles and everything that there is, and how can I work with nature to, you know, to make it better for the environment and better for us.
And like you were saying off air, you look at the permaculture principles and you go, oh, I do that. Oh, my values are aligned with that. I think a lot of people who are gardeners or outdoorsy people, or, into sustainability, they actually do have a lot of these permaculture things that they align with without even realizing.
I think so, because like, I found myself when I started going through the 12 steps principles, sorry, just keep going back, and ticking it off mentally, going, yes, yes, I can give an example of what I do for each one. And I think that's the beauty of it. Sometimes I think we get too wrapped up in, the naming of it or the rules, and that, and then we realize that actually there's no need for that, because we're doing part of it. And when it becomes part of your everyday life, and not just in the garden, you know, um, it's wonderful.
You've essentially just reversed engineered it, really. I mean, you were doing the thing, and then you looked and went, oh, this actually applies. And, I think a lot of people that would be listening to your story now will probably be sitting there going, oh, hang on, I do that as well. Like, I've always, cooked enough, or, bagged my leftovers up and frozen them so that I've got them for another time, or, a lot of the examples that you're talking about, I think a lot of people would resonate with that. And that's something too, that, like, when we did our permaculture course, that our teacher Brett spoke about too, it's that it doesn't have to be so specific that it is permaculture and we have to bang into that. It's more about actually just doing the thing, when you can have these conversations with people, and it doesn't matter if it's, gardening or social connections or sustainability or, saving things off the side of the road, whatever it is. It's about the actual thing that you're doing, and you get into that mindset, and it does create habits, and it creates that lifestyle, and it just becomes the norm. Like, you know, you now have a worm farm, whereas before you may have never ever thought about that in a, you know, in a million years. A worm farm, no way I'm having that. But now it's so normal to you that to not have one, you know, would be missing a part of your system in your backyard.
Exactly. And, again, I started with one worm farm and then I moved on to a second worm farm, which I use as like a pseudo compost. I don't have
Yeah.
room for compost with that. And then sometimes I just do the in ground worm farm where I've just got like PVC tubing and then just put some holes in it and put that in. So that's another way of providing nutrients and so on. I mean, there's things that you discover as you keep going with it. And one of the things, as you were saying, I mean, applying that principle to cocktails and botanical beverages that I create as well. Shrubs, as we know, they're short woody plants and so on. But shrubs are also a non-alcoholic vinegar-based drink, and you make them from either fruit or vegetables with sugar and um, different types of vinegar with an aromatic element. So the whole idea behind the shrubs, which is why I love it, apart from that they taste delicious, is that it is a sustainable way of using your produce. It is an ancient method. I haven't invented it. It's not a recent invention. People used to make shrubs to preserve their produce. And what I love about it is you take something and you make this delicious drink out of it, and then you're left with these solids, and those solids are edible, right? So you can use them in a variety of ways. So again, there's zero waste. And the beauty with making shrubs is you don't need your best fruit and veg, right? So if things don't look
Mhm.
their best or towards the end of their life and that ugly fruit, all that, even better. When I make mine, if I don't have it in the garden and I'm buying it, I just buy the things that are what they call the ugly fruit that's on special and so on. And that's what you really want to use it for. It's not about the aesthetics and so on. So applying something like that to make a cocktail or a non-alcoholic cocktail or whichever way you want to use them, because they're so versatile, you can use them in different ways. That is actually another, I guess, permaculture principle
Mhm.
that can be applied to a cocktail or botanical beverage.
Mm, I love
And
it.
they're delicious, as you found out on
Yes,
in
I
back
was
in
just
May.
about to say
Yes,
that.
they are.
We loved the pineapple one that you did on the weekend when we listened to your talk. It was delicious, and Joe and I both said we have to buy the books, both of them, because you have the second one on shrubs and sodas. And like you said, I think
Yes.
they'd be so
Mhm.
versatile to have with soda. I think they're a great gardening drink. I think they'd be great with, we're like talking about champagne and passion fruit combos, and you got our
Yeah.
creative juices flowing. Like we were really thinking about things that we were
Yeah.
growing and how we could use them. And I think it's exciting, and it's one of those things that's like a celebration for me. Like I love having a drink as a celebratory thing with my partner and my family. And yeah, I love it. I'm so going to buy these books and
And
devour
you
them.
know, the thing is, imagine that you've got friends coming over or family, and you're making drinks out of your garden,
Hmm.
and that's what you're serving. I
Yeah.
grew this, and I'm making a cocktail out of it, or I made the shrub out of it.
Yeah.
And when I have people come in and visit, and it's like, okay, you're gonna taste things you haven't tasted before. Um, and that's where I've got like a lot of the different botanicals in the first book. Is like some things are a little bit unusual, like the olive herb,
Hmm.
okay, which is not something that a lot of people know of. So you get to be very
Mhm.
creative, and you get to share it with people that you love when they come over. And then, imagine in some time you're just kicking back in the garden, having a wonderful drink, and
Oh
you
yeah.
grew it, you know.
All right. What are your top drinks that you've created from your garden books?
Okay, so my favorite cocktail from the first book, Grow Your Own Cocktail Garden, is called The Land of Plenty. And I called it The Land of Plenty because for me, it embodies everything that is wonderful about this country that we're in. And it combines rye whiskey. So it's Australian rye whiskey. So it's got that little bit of spiciness that comes through. And the garden ingredients is an oxymel, which is an ancient way of making infusions using honey and apple cider vinegar. And the botanicals and the herbs that I use in it are a combination of, excuse me, Australian native herbs and botanicals that I'm growing in the garden. So it's not just one. So it's not like just lemon myrtle. I've got a whole variety of them that I make this oxymel. And the third component of the cocktail is honey water. So you know, we're using honey and we're using a little bit of water with it and a little bit of bitters. And it's absolutely amazing. And we actually drink it a lot at home, especially in winter
Mhm.
or in this weather as well, which is wonderful. And it is just it is very simple to make, and it for me it just I thought about what is the best way to call it, and for me it brings all those elements together. You know, it brings in a little bit of spice from the rye whiskey, the sweetness from the honey and the oxymel, and all that Australian native ingredients like native thyme and lemon myrtle
Mm.
and a few other bits and pieces that I won't divulge
And it would
that are
taste
in the book.
and it would taste different every time, I guess, depending on the honey that you're using as well.
Yes, yes, and with the oxymel, you make it. It takes about a month or so for the flavors to come through, but it's very simple to make. You basically put it all together and wait, and then after you've got it, you just leave it in the fridge, and it can last a long time. Well, it doesn't last a long time at our place because we do go through it a lot, but it's one of those things that also mellows the
Yeah.
longer that the longer that you leave it. And every time you make it, you're going to get a slightly different flavor. The reason being is, your aromatics are going to be a little bit different. And as you said, the honey that you use is going to be a little different. But it's all pretty much that flavor profile is just so good. And for me, that would be like up there in terms of the ultimate favorite cocktail.
I'm picturing your kitchen, and if your place is like mine, every other storage area that you could possibly find. It's almost like a cocktail apothecary. Like you've got, you'll have sort of dried herbs, and you'll have, all your
Gels.
different concoctions and things kind of ready to go at any given time. Is it kind of like that?
Well, yes and no. In the office behind me, there, I've got like all these little jars, which are probably like, a good description of what you say for the apothecary. But if you were to open my fridge, you would find that there is no room for food. There are so many shrub bottles in there that we're just like again playing like Tetris in the fridge, like what can I move and so on, because I've got all these things in there. And at one point, like when I was writing the first book, we literally had very, very little room for anything for food, because it was just full of all these syrups and liqueurs and everything that I was making. So yes, it's that. And it's sort of it becomes a bit of an obsession, but then
Hmm.
it's a delicious obsession because it's
Is
from
it?
the garden.
Yeah.
It's all that. And then I don't make big volumes of it as well, because you just need
Mhm.
a little bit to taste, and I'd rather have them fresh as
Hmm.
well.
Yep.
I mean,
Are
that's the
you
thing. If you're making shrubs, for example, they can last up to 12 months.
Yeah. Are you good at labeling, or is it like Russian roulette? You just pick the jar.
Well, I've actually got caught out a few times, so now I'm really diligent at labeling, and right
Mhm.
up to the point where I say labeled on this date or bottled on this date, because if I've made something that needs time to actually infuse, then I'll have both dates on there, because
Mhm.
otherwise you just forget. And I'm
Yeah,
talking, there's a
totally.
lot of like these mini bottles in the fridge.
How was the process of writing a book? How did you find that?
I did that in stages.
Mm.
I'd actually did the writing part first. So basically I did all the introductory parts that I was talking about. So that was pretty dry and, not very exciting to do. But I just was in the mindset, if I didn't know anything about gardening, and I didn't at the start, what do I want to know? Okay. So all these, all these things that you just want to have as reference material. The same thing for cocktails. And that I already had a lot of that information, so that was easy to do. So I set out to do that very first part, first up. And then the creative part was coming up with cocktails or drinks or, botanical beverages, non-alcoholic, the whole variety. That creative aspect, that took a lot of time to do, because coming up with something and then making it and tasting it, and is it going to work, is it not going to work, do you need to tweak it, that was quite a lengthy process. Writing the appendices about how to deal with, organically with pests and all that, that was like, wait to finish that, because it's like, you start dreaming about it after a while. Aphids and things, it's like, no, but you've got to have all that information in there. The growing part was basically, the grow it was from a lot of information that I had on my phone, and that I collected since I started. It's like, that was easy to do. Then the second part, which was the food pairing and pairing with spirits, so that the eat it part, which is more about flavor, that was also drawing on my experiences before, writing about food, writing about restaurants, and also I used to cook a lot before. Now with the garden and everything else, I don't have time for all that, but I used to do a lot of that. So putting that together. The biggest part was the photography. That was very frustrating. And you're working, I told myself that I wanted the photos to be taken in the garden, preferably next to the botanical, right? So that task I was doing throughout the seasons, as you could imagine. But also, you've got a small window of light that you can work with. And because I'm in a coastal location, we get afternoon sea breezes. So you set up the beautiful cocktail, you have it sitting there, and the next thing you know, there's a little bit of wind, and you start looking like a whirlpool in the glass. You can't do that. Or you get one of our resident birds one time just flew into the drip. Start again. Or,
Word has gotten out. They're like, cocktails on, Corinne's backyard, let's go.
Yes, they do. And, they just do that. They just watch you. Whenever they see a camera, they're watching, and they see a drink, and that's it. Or you set up this perfect shot, and you've got the perfect egg white foam on a cocktail, and you've got your garnish, and then an ant goes through it. So it's all these things that you wouldn't think, if you're setting up a photo and you're doing it indoors and, got other things to deal with, but having it in situ in the garden, all these little things just come into play, and that's what what you do. So that's another part to actually consider, which was very frustrating at times, because it's not just making the drink and doing and taking the photo. If a bird does knock it over, or if an ant goes in, you've got to start again. You've got to wash the glass. You've got to make the drink again. You've got to set it up and make sure the wind doesn't blow. And
it is kind of like when you're going through, like, relating again just back to the garden, that process, like Elise, you've just gone through recently with your seedlings. You plant the seed, like you prepare the soil, the seed raising mix, you put that lovingly into a pot, you plant the seed, you talk to it, you sing to it, you go, come on, you can do it, you can grow, this thing emerges, it's amazing, you're excited, you're like, yeah, this is looking great. And you come out the next day and they just chopped off.
Well,
like, it's that.
Have now jumped the fence, Joe, and they ate all of my baby spinach last night.
Oh,
and there's these big kangaroo paw prints like right next to it, so I can't blame any other animal, but it was definitely the roos, and I was devastated this morning. So I've got to go sow some more spinach. I need to get some exclusion happening somehow, because I think it's the only way we're going to overcome some of these issues here. But
I think so. I think you need a cocktail while you're doing it, though, so that you can just...
I agree.
You can get creative. You can come up with amazing solutions.
So what are your plans for the future? Have you got some more books coming out?
Yes,
Or
I'm actually working on the third book, which I'm aiming to finish to be released by early next year.
oh,
So
exciting.
that's also in the Grow It, Eat It, Drink It banner, and similar concept, but it's actually a little bit different to the two that I've got there. So it's really
Ooh.
busy time. Same thing, taking photos in the garden and sitting down and actually doing the writing and editing, and it's quite a lengthy process. And then you've got to make sure you're checking as well as you
Yeah.
go along
Mhm.
with it. But I'm very, very excited about this third book. I can't say what it is yet,
Yay.
but it is something very,
So
very
same? Is
Well,
it the same in the same sort of vein, or like you said, it's a little bit different? Can you share a little bit about what's different, or is that a wait and
No,
see? We've
I
got to wait for.
can't. it,
hey,
it's still got the grow it, eat it, drink it concept to it. Okay, because
Yep.
that's pretty much what I do with that. But it's something a little bit different. I can't really discuss it, but I'm hoping that it would actually encourage people to do whatever it is that I'm going to be writing about and not be daunted
Well,
by,
people will just
for
have to.
example,
They'll have
yeah,
to buy the book. They'll have to buy the
listen,
you know,
book when it comes out
yeah.
next year.
yeah,
Listen,
yeah. So
to take the stress off you, Corinne, Joe and I will be more than happy to come and taste test all the recipes for
oh,
you.
that
So
would be
we'll just
wonderful.
take that off your plate,
Public
okay?
service from us to
Yeah.
you.
That is the fun part. I
I
wish
could
you
imagine
could.
that you've got lots of friends and families and neighbours that sort of would say, "Hey, like when it's the next round, I'll be there."
I wish you were nearby. I would love to have you over.
Oh, lovely. Um,
Oh, we would love to come. That'd be amazing.
we're coming
Yeah.
up on around an hour now of having chat. So we often finish, or we always finish, I should say, with a grounding question, which is if you had one piece of permaculture or gardening advice to someone starting out, what would you tell them?
That's actually a very good question. My advice would be work with nature.
Mm,
Don't
Mhm.
fight it. Watch, listen, take notes, keep an eye out to what's happening around you. For example, at the moment, we've had all sorts of strange weather
mm,
lately,
Yeah.
but we're supposed to be, close to winter. I still got tomatoes and eggplant,
yeah.
okay?
Mhm.
And they're still producing. Am I going to rip
Mhm.
them out? No, I'm going with the flow. I've got cucamelons that are producing so much. If you saw the plant, it's actually, it looks like it's dying,
Mm,
but I'm
Mhm.
harvesting every day.
Yeah.
Again, do I need to pull that out because I'm supposed to be planting something else? No, I'm working with nature. I'm letting things happen. And another thing for somebody who's fairly new to it is you're going to feel really daunted when you see bugs and aphids and things
mm,
eating
Mhm.
your, whatever you're growing. And you're going to panic, if anything like me. I used to panic. Oh, what do I do? How do I know? Grab a spray or something. And you know what? For the last season, I did nothing. It was partly through being lazy, but also I thought, I've been, I've been doing this for a while. I've got a good ecosystem. Let's see what happens. I'll just keep an eye on it. And, you know, it worked in a lot of cases, majority of
Mhm.
cases. Sometimes a bit of intervention was needed. But again, working with nature and not
mm.
fighting what nature is doing. I think that's something, if you keep that principle in mind, you will be a lot more relaxed about your gardening experience, and you will just feel more in synergy with it.
Mm.
Absolutely. And you get more curious about it too, don't you? It's like, oh, okay, so I am getting aphids. So what eats aphids? Okay, there's a number of things. Oh, hang on, I've actually got more ladybugs than what I had last year. That's interesting. Oh, ladybugs eat aphids. So
Mm.
it's you just observe. Like I know for us, we had a huge outbreak. We got a lot of grapevines that we put in, and we had this particular caterpillar that loves grapevines, and it was just annihilating it. So what we would do is actually go through and we'd give the big ones a tickle, because if they were really active and jumping around, when you touch a caterpillar they sort of react. And I go, okay, they're going to the ducks because, they're big, strong, healthy caterpillars. But ones that were a little bit slow and a bit sluggish, well, they're the ones that it's highly likely they've had a parasitic wasp lay eggs in them. And I don't want to break that life cycle. I want those eggs to hatch so that those wasps continue to manage the caterpillars. I want to work with them. So the ones that are a little bit slow and, a bit docile, well, they got to stay and eat the leaf. I didn't care about the leaf. So, that's how, again, just through observation and management, morning coffee and a caterpillar tickle. Simple as that.
I've actually got a little tweezers, like plastic tweezers. I can pull them off because I'm still squeamish after all this time.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
The green goop, not so nice with toast. No.
And they put up a fight
But I think
sometimes.
that's great advice. I think that's absolutely great advice, Corinne. I think that's it's really important to work with nature and be observant about what is happening in your own patch, and not just reading the books and the literature and watching YouTube and saying, well, this person said it's this season, so therefore I must. It doesn't work like that. It's every
I think
context
with climate
is different.
change, we have to look beyond seasons and what we need to do. We just have to go and say, okay, what's the weather doing? Okay, is it too early to plant this particular? Is it something that I should just hold off? And just be mindful of what's happening, because if you say, you should have get this in by March, and then here we are in June and you haven't done it, give it a go. Give it a go. Sometimes plants are resilient, and they will surprise you, and you will just feel good about it. I mean, I'm still getting tomatoes. How good is that?
That's awesome. Absolutely awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and having a chat with us today. We've thoroughly loved it. I know that our listeners would love it as well. So we will share all of your links to your socials and definitely to the books. As Elise said, she and I are both going to jump in and be buying your books, and we're just going to work our way through, I think, from A to Z. Is that a fair statement, Elise?
Yeah, I mean, we've got how many weeks left of the year? We'll just do a cocktail per podcast.
That's right.
Oh, I think we can definitely do that.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you both so much for having me. It's been it was an absolute pleasure meeting you both on International Permaculture Day, and to be invited to be part of this. I'm really very, very honored to be part of it today. So thank you so much for having me on the show.
No, thank you. It's our absolute pleasure. All right.
Bye.
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 Thanks for listening to the Practical Permaculture podcast. Jump onto our Facebook group to keep the chat going and to look for any resources that we mentioned on today's show. Look in the show notes.
And if you liked the episode today, then subscribe. Please give us a review and share. And if you didn't, then that's okay. We'll sure you'll find the right podcast for you.
Bye.